I was lifting heavy weight. There was one day that I think I just pushed it too hard. Ever since, like my shoulders, they hurt when I put them in certain angles. I'm not exactly sure how to address that.
In those settings where your pain doesn't resolve and you probably have developed that, then the next step would be to do a prolotherapy, for example, which is a regenerative procedure that injects all the ligaments and stuff that have become a little loose. And basically what that does is the growth factors and all the cytokines and all these things that now used and somebody with the advanced prolotherapeutic techniques will actually inject those ligaments, and that will set all of the repair mechanisms, repair and tighten up those ligaments so that they hold things in place much more like they used to. Welcome to Your Infinite Health. Are you getting older?
Are you feeling it?
How would you like to do that in reverse?
We're your host,
Dr. Tripp
and LeNae.
We've run an integrative medicine practice for 13 years.
Together, we have 60 years of combined experience helping clients.
We've helped tens of thousands achieve success in health and live longer, happier lives.
In this show, we'll cover peer-reviewed and evidence-based integrative approaches to creating the health you've always wanted.
We also share professional experience we see in the field every day.
So if you're ready to feel, look, and live your best life, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Your Infinite Health Podcast.
Hey, Tripp.
Oh, hey, LeNae.
I'm so glad you finally put that phone down because you text like a sloth.
I only have two thumbs.
You only have two thumbs. My God. So today we've just been running back to back. I've gotten really bad about overestimating my ability to get from one place to the next. And so I keep scheduling myself to do boom, boom, boom. And there's no drive time. There's no breathe time. There's no bathroom break time. And I really need to stop. It's driving me nuts. So I'm like trying to breathe before we go on here and have this amazing interview that we're about to have. But before we do that, you had the craziest joke earlier today. I wanted you to share it.
Oh, right. Was that? Yeah. Oh,
it was about
what type of animal loves baseball?
What type of animal loves baseball? I don't know, a cougar?
No.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not going to guess. Don't suffer everybody through this.
Bats.
A bat. That is so bad. So bad. Yeah, don't go into stand-up.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, we've got a great guest today, and I'm going to read his bio without saying his name and see if you can guess who it is.
Okay.
Big mystery. He is the founder of a podcast production agency, and I'm not going to say the name because it is his name. It's a big, amazing podcast agency. He specializes in helping thought leaders launch, automate, and grow their podcast. His company has produced tens of thousands of pieces of content and uses podcast as the engine to power your website, emails, social media, long-form content. And he hosts a globally ranked top 1% podcast, After Hours Entrepreneur, and leads dozens of entrepreneurs in the After Hours Entrepreneur Mastermind community, of which I am an occasional member. Let's welcome Mark Savant with Mark Savant Media.
Oh, yeah. Really good.
Hey. Glad to be here, LeNae. Dr. Goolsby, it's good to see y'all.
Yeah, I was so thankful that you had time. I know I had to reschedule because I forgot about having to chauffeur my son to music lessons and running to the office and everything. So thank you for being so flexible.
When you asked me to come on the show to talk about some of my health issues that I've gone through and talk about this show, I was like, I got to make it happen. So I'm thrilled to be here. It's just that, I've told you this before, the banter that y'all have is so natural and it's so authentic. And I think, quite frankly, a lot of podcasts don't have that. People think, oh, the mic's on, now I have to be all serious and follow this formula. But you just naturally get that banter is what makes a host so magnetic.
Well, that was very important to me, is trying to create something, because I think a lot of medical and healthcare related media is very formal and stiff and clinical. And I've worked really hard, not just on this podcast, but like even in our office and the way that we approach things and service and just the atmosphere of the office, to create something that is engaging and makes the patient and the listener even comfortable. And I have to say, I will tell you, SmartList inspired me to do the format that we do, because I just love that camaraderie and you feel like you're in the room with those guys. And that's something that was important to me, is to give that feel to the listeners so that they can feel like they're in the room with Tripp, who can sometimes, because he's so brilliant, has to be reined in on occasion. So, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it was very important for me to create that kind of environment.
Well, mission success. Y'all are like a dynamic duo. So I'm glad to make it a trio today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
So before we get started on what your health-centric stuff, I know I read your bio, but to hear your words about who you are, what you do, how'd you end up running your own business? Because I know that was not always the case for you, right?
Yeah, I was a lifelong employee. I was always working for someone somewhere at some point. When I graduated from college, I went into the insurance industry and I was there for about 5 years. So I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. You can only get yelled at about premiums so many times before you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Were you doing agent work or adjusting work?
Agency.
You were the guy that said claim denied.
No, I was the guy yelled at for claim denied. I was at the agency level at a property and casualty agency. And so we did a lot of the customer facing work, right? So everything from sales to let's change your coverage, explaining premiums and deductibles and all of that. Down here in South Florida too, where over the past several years, rates have increased a lot too. I'm not going to get into insurance, but a few years ago, I just was like, I can't do this anymore. It's not where I envision my life being. It's not where I want to go in life, right? And I ended up, long story short, starting a podcast. I enjoyed it. People started paying me. And I was like, I'm great at it. I enjoy it. And the market values it. As Arnold says, those are the three things you need. So after 5 years of learning the industry, I was able to leave that day job. And now I focus full time on helping thought leaders launch, automate, and grow podcasts. And it's very rewarding.
Very cool.
Neat. Really neat.
Yeah, it's a great story. Well, I know you help us, so I'm so thankful and grateful for that.
Yeah, this has been an amazing ride. Thank you so much, Mark.
I didn't have to take years trying to figure it out. You sped me up to the front of the line and I got to bypass a lot of mistakes, I think. So that's great.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time and money trying to figure this stuff out. So like I said, and I enjoy it because I want to hear more voices out there. We were talking about this before we hit the record button, but podcasts are the new media, right? The people are watching less television to get their news and information. They're listening to more podcasts. And so I want to hear more real, authentic voices, putting their voices, getting out there and speaking. And it's just very fulfilling because it opens up a lot of different doors that weren't historically open. So I think it's a really exciting thing. And like I said, I love what y'all are doing with your Infinite Health. It's not only informative, but it's interesting and it's entertaining, which are all the core components of a great show.
Cool. Yeah, we wouldn't be nearly as entertaining as we could be without Tripp. He's hysterical.
I like the joke.
Thanks so much, Jared.
I like the joke.
Thanks so much.
Well, okay. So that's really cool. And I'm excited to see where it goes. And can I tell everybody what you're doing? Like your guesting experience that's coming up?
Yeah, listen, I'm an open book. Let's go. If there's one thing I'd like to be, it's transparent, so let's get into it.
Okay, cool. I'm excited for you. So I want to tell everybody that you've got this great opportunity, not just being on our podcast, but you're actually going to be on is it James Altucher? I don't want to say his name.
Yeah, James Altucher. The show is actually already live. You could listen to it today. And we talk about AI. We talk about the future of work. I mean, it's super interesting. But one of my top takeaways in talking to James, we were talking about what type of content to create to promote ourselves or our business or our ideas. And one of the things he had mentioned was, if I'm not worried about what people think, I don't write it. Which I was like, wow.
Oh, I heard him say that. Yeah, that's a very vulnerable position to put yourself in.
It is. It's very authentic, very open, very in of one, so to speak. Because, and I think that's the thing about the podcast too, is that you really get the impression, the opinion, the beliefs of the individual, and not just those curated and manipulated to steer a mass population. I really love the format that way.
Great takeaway. And I think that's the way that you build trust, is not being controversial just for the sake of being controversial.
Well, and I know you like to be a little bit controversial.
I do. I like to stir the pot a little bit, but I stir the pot when I think that what I try to do when I try to stand out is I try to find like commonly held beliefs or things that a lot of people believe are true and don't think are true. And I educate myself on the topic, and I give what I think is a nuanced opinion on the idea. I think the more ideas that we can go deep on and the more ideas that we can disagree on, that's how change happens. If everyone just sat around in a corner giving everyone back massages, we wouldn't have come up with some of the improvements that we have in society.
For sure. It takes a really brave person to disagree these days. You can really get flogged for saying something that the masses perceive to be not popular.
Yeah, but you can't have courage without fear.
To those that are divergent.
And so often those things are because of misinformation or lack of information that's been assessed by all of those masses.
It gets into the law of belief.
Mm-hmm.
And so where a lot of those beliefs are just inherited from your parents or your teachers. As a child, you just bought into what the elders around you said was true. And so if you don't take a minute to question whether or not that belief is serving you or on point with who you are, and I think that's where a lot of these
or empowered perspective. I think that those people are not that information and that opinion that they derive, not just taking the belief of someone else without being circumspect on how that information came about.
So Mark is going to make sure that you are getting some circumspection.
That sounds almost like a surgical procedure.
And I will say, I think that concept is one of the reasons why RFK is like really boosting his popularity in this presidential campaign as for president. Like, he's saying things that he really believes are true. He has data to back it up. I'm not going to go into vaccines because I just don't have the nuanced opinion or the data. But I feel like the more we censor ideas, the more hype those ideas get. And if nobody in corporate media will allow RFK to speak, and then he goes on Joe Rogan and reaches 100 million people, that's I think one of the reasons why he's so popular right now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're going to deviate away from politics and go into healthcare. Speaking of healthcare, what do you call that? My segue is so subtle. You didn't even see it coming. Before we went live, you were talking about some health concerns that your child had. And I was like, don't talk about that anymore because I wanted you to share that with the listener. So do you mind going into that?
Sure. We'll get right into it. Just like other human beings, we have health issues that pop up. So I have a daughter, she's 7 now. Around age 4 to 5, we were struggling with a cough. She was struggling with a cough. She's had this like lingering cough that she just couldn't kick. And obviously as parents, that's a concern. So we had started bringing her to the doctor to try to resolve this. And they put her on a nebulizer, like a mask that she would put over her face that would pump basically steroids into her lungs. And we would do that twice a day, morning and evening. And again, not a doctor. So if I go to the doctor and we're like, we've had this problem, we've tried other things, what do we do? And they suggest that, okay, you're the doctor, you went to medical school, you're we're gonna go with what you recommended. The problem though was we were on this regimen for weeks, for months, and the problem wasn't getting better. And I recall I was at the office. This was when I was back in the insurance office. My wife was taking my daughter to the doctor for this, the specialist. And I told her, listen, I don't want her to stay on steroids anymore. If the doctor says we need to put her on more steroids, you need to call me right away. And lo and behold, what did the doctor say when they arrived? We're going to try more steroids. And I was like, doctor, what are we doing here, dude? I don't feel like this is helping because we've been doing this. It's not helping. We've been doing this for months. And you're saying we're going to keep on doing it. He was like, wow, well, I think and I was like, he's like, let's just try it for another couple of weeks or something. I was like, okay, fine. That's the negotiation. Didn't get better. So we cut her off. We just stopped doing it at that point. So at the time I was reading a book called Atomic Habits. And long story short, there's this place in the book where he talks about how making many small changes can lead to massive results, right? It's not about one thing. We'll just do this one thing and all your problems will be fixed. It's about let's do all these little things. And so what we did is we went into our room, we removed all the anything upholstery, any blankets, extra pillows, stuffed animals. We got rid of all of it. We put in an air purifier. We took out basically anything that could collect dust was gone. We got rid of it.
Okay.
We turned the fan off at night. We had the air purifier. We made sure that her hair was very dry at night, right? And so we did a lot of little things like that. And after just a few days, the cough subsided.
So you think it was an allergy-related issue?
Correlation doesn't equal causation, but that's the natural inference that we made. Yeah.
And so those things were not suggested to you?
No.
At the onset?
No.
Although I got to say, from the perspective of the physician, the treating physician, the use of the steroids was to address inflammation and try to suppress inflammation. But in someone that age, and that is probably the standard of care approach in pediatrics. Not a pediatrician, but at the same time, probably trying to address an allergic type of response or an inflammatory response that could be suppressed with a steroid inhaler or steroid inhalation therapies. So
for that to go on for months,
that type of
does not seem like standard of care.
And well, agreed. However, what Mark and his wife did obviously was getting more to the fundamental root of the problem. I think in a sense of conventional medicine, the physician responded standard of care, whereas it wasn't a thoughtful process to address or a mindful process to address, unless those suggestions were made, to address the underlying potential causes of an asthmatiform or a bronchitic type of allergic bronchitic type of reaction that was ongoing, and she was having it happen again and again and again. And so obviously there was a provocation there that was not being addressed. And so just take this treatment and it'll go away. And it wasn't going away any longer. And I wonder about the consequences on the immune system.
I wonder about what's going on. Did that have any damage to the lungs? Like, is there any long-term damage?
Maybe not necessarily to the lungs, but systemically, that amount of steroids going all over would have the primary consequence would be immune suppression, and that could have been manifest by fungal infections and other things, other types of infections that could have occurred. But at that age, there's a peptide that comes from our thymus gland. It's really interesting that is at very high concentrations when we're infants and toddlers and the like, and stays very elevated in the body until we're in our early 20s or so, and then it starts to decline. And what its job is to help create and organize the immune system so that it addresses challenges appropriately. Right. It's called thymosin alpha-1, and just tons of research on it that exists, but it's just a monumental peptide in that it actually helps organize the immune system. Now, your daughter probably had, how old is she now?
She's now 7. At the time, she was around 5.
So she's got loads of that and loads of the thymosin there, and probably the likelihood of her having an immune deficit would be negligible. But you never know what that kind of lengthy exposure can cause. I think, again, not a pediatrician, don't know the data related to that, but I'm sure that question has been asked multiple times. But the thymosin, she's got loads of thymosin, loads of ability to recuperate, and kind of bulletproof from that perspective.
So no issues since?
No, it subsided. I'd have to say 98%. It's been almost a complete recovery. We also, by the way, cleared out the ductwork. We installed a blue light to kill any mold or fungus that might go through the AC. So that was another thing that we had done. So,
So what, did she get her stuffed animals back or no?
She's allowed one stuffed animal in the room.
Okay.
Well, you get one. You get one.
Well, I don't know if I could have survived without my stuffed animals when I was 7.
It was tough. She had her blankie, no more blankie. I mean, we had to really we even cut out sugar. We, like I said, and we've slowly over time reintroduced things, right? But we really just were like, enough is enough. We're going to just go extreme. We're going to remove anything that could be impeding this. And that's where I think I think how we got the result there.
Yeah. So basically you did an elimination diet, which is really good because it helps you identify, if certain things are triggering certain responses. So
she gets candy now. So her life is much better.
She's a happier child. Doctors are not infallible for sure.
No, not in this. I think this calls into also y'all's ability to mindfully approach the challenge. Kind of brings up the issue of the medical mastermind, choosing the right practitioners to help you get to your health-related goals. So that's a real important choice to make, obviously. And a lot of people just go to the doctor, they're into the system, and they see the doctor the 5 minutes, they get their pill, and they're on their way. And very often that doesn't, or you get an accumulation of pills that are taking care of the problems that are caused by the pills, and this and that and the other. And I think choosing a doctor that helps you get to where you want to go and to achieve the health outcomes that you want is critical. And if, like y'all did, you understood that, well, this guy is really, or gal is not helping us get to where we want to go with our daughter. We're going to mindfully address this challenge, and maybe finding a physician more in tune with y'all's thought processes would be another additional thought.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of really great doctors, and I think that's one of the benefits of living in the United States is, as a meritocracy, you can find the best person for the job and the best person that's willing to sit down and really understand you, right? Being a doctor is extremely complicated.
Absolutely.
Obscenely complicated.
Absolutely.
So I think just blindly accepting what someone in a lab coat says is probably not best. It's Dr. Fauci, you made a few mistakes, buddy.
Oh my God. Don't
go there. Don't go there. But it's about it being empowered too, because I think the tradition of medicine has been, well, we don't know what the hell was going on. Let's get somebody's advice and the physician was there on the pedestal. And yes, that's what we're going to do, because there was a lot less knowledge base available to individuals. Now
there's so much information, it makes patients dangerous.
It does go the other way. Yes. If as an individual, you empower yourself to say, this doctor is like-minded and is helping me get to where I want to go on a day-to-day basis. This practitioner is helping me get what I want out of my health, or achieve a health that I desire, then that's the individual you want working with you. You don't want somebody that comes in and says 5 minutes and gives you a pill and camouflages the symptom. And I think that's a real important part of choosing your physician or your practitioner in any domain.
So I assume you changed pediatricians?
Well, so we still have the same pediatrician, because we actually love our pediatrician. That was a specialist who we were working with on that. Again, we've worked through, and to your point, we try to educate ourselves as much as possible while also being respectful of the person that had the knowledge, that has the knowledge. And
right.
I'm glad we were able to figure that. I actually personally had an experience somewhat similar when I was younger too. I used to have terrible eczema, not terrible eczema, but I had eczema. I'd have very dry skin. Not terrible, because I've seen people with terrible, wasn't terrible, but I had eczema. My skin would get really dry. And I go to the dermatologist. They tried all these creams and all these stuff. They even, I don't even know what this was.
Steroids.
Yep. Steroids. And they also prescribed at a certain point, it was like a shot. I don't remember the name of it, but I'd have to put a shot into my stomach twice a day, trying everything. And I remember asking the doctor, like, well, what impact do you think my diet has on this condition? And I just remember her saying, this diet wouldn't impact this. This is something different. You know, I struggled with that answer. It sounds
like you intuitively knew that nutrition has a huge impact on.
I was on a beer and pizza diet, right? So
yes.
Yahoo.
Yeah. To be young, right? And anyway, once I decided to get off the beer and pizza diet, skin cleared up. Surprise, surprise, right?
That's amazing.
And it was just like, I think the moral of the story that I have is, if someone tells you something that doesn't sound right, it's okay to question it.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
And I think it's responsible to question it and to get other opinions to try to find something that not only sounds right, but is backed up by data and science as well.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the environment that you're creating, that adversarial environment, inflammatory environment that is created by excess carbohydrates is what was going on there. And I think
it was beer.
Little bit.
Yeah. So the deal is, a lot of times, and what I see in my practice is that by going to a diet that has very little inflammatory potential for that individual, actually, even if they have lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or another autoimmune disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, all these highly inflammatory diseases, what happens is that those diseases almost invariably, their symptoms will either subside significantly or they will abate altogether. So there's a threshold that if we're feeding the inflammatory pathways, and those individuals invariably, they feel bad. They're tired, they're wasted, they don't have energy to do anything because all their ATP is going to, which is your ATP is your energy molecule in your body. But you're using all the ATP to create and try and address that inflammation.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Tracy in Wisconsin wants to know what ATP is.
Exactly. Adenosine triphosphate.
Which means what?
Which is a molecule that, as we consume the phosphate bonds, that is the kind of...
I don't know if Tracy's following that. You've got
the gasoline
bonds, Tracy.
Oh, my God.
Even better than government bonds.
It helps you get you through the day.
Oh, okay. I think Tracy in Wisconsin can understand that one.
Yeah. So as you consume all that stuff, you don't have enough energy for the basic communications and the homeostasis in the body. So you create this toxic environment that makes everything else worse. And so in your case, you have maybe the predisposition for your skin to develop eczema, but getting rid of that highly inflammatory beer and pizza diet basically allowed your body to have enough energy to address those potential toxicities and create the balance that it needed to have to prevent the eczema. So that's really neat.
Yeah, the body didn't have the fuel to actually fight it in and be healthy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me that wasn't recommended. Here we are.
Dr. Mark. Mark. Well, but you're pretty health conscious anyway. You exercise. Aren't you always engaged in sports and exercise and all that stuff?
Yeah, I have been. And throughout my life, and I think that most people's life, there's ups and downs, right? There's sometimes where I'm really health conscious and sometimes where I'm a little bit looser. But I guess it brings up another topic while we're here. Well, let's get into it, right?
Bring it.
I recently got more into weightlifting in the gym. Historically, I'd done a lot more running, but I got into weightlifting. And it was good. I was lifting heavy weight, lifting more weight than I had ever lifted in my life, which was great. Not on steroids, by the way, no matter what, regardless of what you think. But I was lifting heavy weight. And there was one day that I think I just pushed it too hard doing a dumbbell bench. And ever since, like, my shoulders, they hurt when I put them in certain angles. And I'm not exactly sure how to address that, but I sometimes struggle. Like I used to sleep on my side with my shoulder up, and now it's uncomfortable to do that. Or if I'm trying to do pull-ups, like I have the strength to do the pull-up, but I have pain in my shoulders. So I'm not sure the best way to address that.
How long have you been having the pain?
So the shoulder pain started, we'll call it a couple months ago, about 2 months ago.
You still doing the exercises?
I am lifting weights, but more running right now. One of my thoughts was, okay, well, the first few shoulder presses that I do, the first couple hurt, but after I push through that initial pain, then it goes away. Maybe I'll build up the muscle around it and that will improve it.
So
I feel like this is not going to be a good thing coming out of the right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to phrase it properly here.
Give it to me. Give me the heat. Give it to me tough. I could take it.
So the things that cause the pain, unless you tear a muscle or something like that, your muscles are really not going to be causing the pain there. What's causing the pain there is the insertions of the ligaments, and they're trying the best they can to hold the joint together. Okay. And the problem with dead weights, any kind of dead weight, machine weight, all of that, when you start the motion, your ligaments your muscles have not enacted and are not contracting fully. And so they can't protect the ligaments from getting damaged. Okay. So as you progress in the movement, you engage more and more muscle. Okay. And so eventually you reach that point where, okay, I've got enough going here. My muscles are protecting the joint also to a certain degree, but it's not their role to actually, the muscles don't have the role of actually holding the joint together. That's all ligament. Okay.
Understood.
And so when you first engage with a dead weight, you don't have virtually any protection because there are no muscles activated or fewer muscles are activated. So, and this is one of the reasons why using band weights, using stronger and stronger bands is probably a preferable way to do muscular exercise as opposed to dead weights. Now, you might get a lot of comments there, but at the same time, what's going on is that if you want to protect your joint, a band, and they've got really strong bands out there, right? So a band will actually engage progressively and cause more and more and more resistance as you move through the muscular motion, as opposed to all of the resistance being there at moment one. And so one of the things you probably do after you recover from stretching your ligaments out of place is actually use stronger and stronger band weights as your resistance training. And you can actually, I'm sure you can find plenty of development in that as equal to or even better than a dead weight. The other thing is you probably have stretched and damaged a number of ligaments in your rotator cuff and all around that are holding your shoulder joint together. And if that's a persistent problem, what you're doing is you predispose yourself over the course of time to develop arthritis because those ligaments won't be it's like taking a really strong rubber band, right? One of those really thick rubber bands, you stretch it really hard, and then you try and get it back to its place, and it probably won't go all the way back. And there's probably going to be a little bit of laxity there, a little bit of excess. And that little bit of excess is going to allow a little bit too much movement in the joint in its resting position. And over the course of time, that predisposes to developing arthritis and cartilage degeneration, et cetera, et cetera.
So stop lifting dead weights.
Yeah.
Well, so therein lies the problem, right? Because I love lifting with dead weights now, but
yeah.
The ligaments, correct me if I'm wrong, ligaments don't have blood vessels, so they don't heal on their own. Am I?
Oh, yeah. All the blood vessels go through the ligaments.
Through the ligaments, okay. I'm thinking of tendons, maybe.
The insertion of the ligament is where the nerves are, and where the blood vessels are. I mean, that's where they go. That's their insertion point. Those insertion points are where all the smaller blood vessels are. So that's where you feel. That's why you feel the pain, because the nerves are there. They're not in the bone or the cartilage, really. They're in the ligaments.
Right.
So you told him what the problem is, but what's the solution? Okay, a solution is to choose bands over weights, but
I can talk to you about it later. I don't want to give advertisements for anybody, but
from a regenerative medicine perspective, is there something that would help with the pain?
so in those settings where your pain doesn't resolve and you probably have developed that, then the next step would be to do a prolotherapy, for example, which is a regenerative procedure that injects all of the ligaments and stuff that have become a little loose. And basically what that does is depending on what type of injectate you use, it actually stimulates all of the local stem cells. Okay, well, all of the local...
You're not supposed to use the word stem cell according to the FDA, so please don't say the word stem cell.
I'm not giving stem cells here. I haven't even said I'm giving stem cells.
Carry on.
Did I say that word? I said it 3 times now. Right? So what it does, what the growth factors and all the cytokines and all these things that are now used, and somebody with the advanced prolotherapeutic techniques will actually inject those ligaments, and that will set all of the repair mechanisms back and tighten up those kind of repair and tighten up those ligaments so that they hold things in place much more like they used to. And or maybe sometimes they're laboratory experiments on rodents that actually show that the resulting ligament production is actually can actually be stronger than the native ligament. So you're reinforcing that and preventing yourself from having that damage. So if you love to do the dead weights, keep doing them. You can come and visit us. I'll be happy to give you some shots.
The other thing, I think it's important to note that not all providers that do regenerative medicine do it the same way. And the way that Trip does it is better. It's just more comprehensive than the way other doctors have been trained to do the technique.
Many doctors or practitioners use a single injection into the joint, and they don't do the entire process of prolotherapy, which is the way I do it. And it's, I believe, far superior.
Yeah, the results that you get really kind of speak for itself. Yeah, so technique is also something to consider when looking for a regenerative medicine provider in your area. If you don't want to come to New Orleans, just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this. Maybe it's serendipity that I got to come on the show and ask this because, I don't know exactly what's going to manifest over time, right? I like the idea of the bands. That makes sense because, like you said, I feel like the moment it happened was when I was leaning back to do the dumbbell flies with the 90-pound weights. And then I just going from a still to movement was maybe too much of a shock on those ligaments.
Absolutely.
It makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they've got really, really big bands, ones that you can't move. So,
but then I'll look like a weenie in the gym. They'll be like, what's this guy doing with his rubber bands?
You'll be looking like Suzanne Summers.
You can still grunt.
Little ankle weights. Get you a thigh master.
Thigh master. They'll revoke my subscription if I walk in with the thigh master.
Yeah, cool. Well, we actually ran over. We went double time today, but I think it's worth it. I think we had a good time, and I hope the listeners find it valuable. And Mark, where can they go to learn more about you and all the cool things that you do?
You could find Mark Savant on your favorite platform and just DM me code word health. I'll know where you came from. So
cool.
Find Mark Savant on your favorite social platform. You can go to marksavantmedia.com and that's where I'm at.
And your podcast again is?
The After Hours Entrepreneur, baby. After Hours Entrepreneur. Just really focused on helping people get that freedom, that financial freedom. It's very important to me.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome stuff.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Really. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Goolsby. Thank you. Thanks, LeNae. Always a pleasure.
Likewise. All right, guys. I hope you found this informative, entertaining, and valuable. And until next time.
Thanks for subscribing to Your Infinite Health. I'm Dr. Tripp.
And I'm LeNae. Until next time, feel it, look it, and live it.